here we are in Die Borlange by Silverty. Map set in Sweden for change, or presumably going to be set in Sweden. This map has been heavily playtested throughout the last 3 months or so. The first playtests were in CSGO, and the map has gone through many iterations, but I think throughout the versions it has definitely lost some charm. And I will be telling you why and giving some feedback onto the changes. I am definitely not really convinced that the map is going into a good direction, and I'm just talking about the dynamic standpoint. But let's look at the layout first. T-spawn. There's some sort of a weird fog with the far Z clip plane or something that I cannot show you the whole map, but T-spawn branches off to the left. There's a Mirage Palace-esque main. Then we have, or rather like a Palace second entrance. We have bombsite main that splits into main A. We have this connector over here that goes into short mid sort of a sightline. We have B mid, this sort of thing, which I will call just straight mid in this map. And then we have B main that's like a macaroni shape. And then we have this cache-esque back quad. Okay, let's start with my first feedback, which is unintuitiveness in level geometry. What a word. Level geometry, the map looks broken in many aspects. This geometry doesn't remind me of anything except an amateur map making in or CS2 tools handling. It's just these sorts of shapes don't make sense in anywhere else except like a weird Bauhaus X brutalism museum sort of. I don't know. It's just looks like contemporary art. But if that's your direction that you want to take the map, then by all means. But it means that rooms like this look hella confusing when you're trying to play them. This back area here, why is this laid out like this? There's the weird extrusion that's like a 90 degree from this corner, and then there's a 45 degree, and then another tilt, and then 45 degree into a flat wall. Why can't we have just a straight room? It's also hella wonky. Why can't we have just a straight room, simple geometry, and then a plywood at the corner to signify that, hey, throw some util from this plywood, and then also it means that you cannot use this corner of the room to get into angles like this, I get what you're trying to do with this, but there is such a better and simpler way to implement it. Also, later on, you will find that when you start to detail the map, where you start to look at a reference, you start to look at pictures, real life locations, how to set the map into a believable location, you will find that you have tons of difficulties in doing that. What kind of a room has just a pillar in the middle and this sort of bulge in the corner? There's just tons of this stuff in the map. Here again, cut a little corner away from this. I don't know if this is to do with some angle stuff, but yeah, I guess what's the reason to then kind of detail the shape of the building? This back area also, are these indents supposed to be window indents or something? I don't know. Looks very weird, and I get this kind of a weird feeling when I play the map that I'm playing in a in a broken environment. This building is I think this the worst offender. We have this quirky roof thing. Then we have another cut away from the roof. We have this thing, this extrusion over here. This thing Makes sense, right? The weird roof, little ramp. This is cut in a very weird way. We have this cut over here. This little thing, geometry is just like warping around itself. On the other side, we have this. We have this thing. I don't know. There are just like tons of this sort of stuff. Maybe that's useful for util. I guess yeah. Like, you know, there's tons of this sort of thing. This thing, like, it would be so much easier for you to make this area like this is supposed to be a warehouse or something. Let's make it a straight square box, and then follow. Like, look at some reference. You don't have to copy reference one to one. Like, don't do that. By all means necessary, but like, get reference, get an idea how a real life like Windows set on the side of a building would be cut out, and then try to mimic that. Like, players will instantly be like, hey, I recognize and I realize what the map is trying to do. These sorts of like nade windows here are just gonna get lost in the map geometry when you have like these sorts of things like all around. I don't know. It's just doesn't reflect as like thought out to me. Here, I think this is the worst example of like what's, you know, with like kind of not following a scale, not really being careful. And this, yeah, like there's a wall that you're supposed to be able to wall bang. You know, it's like 8 units thick or 4 units thick, but you're not. My theory is that there's a clip, bullet block over here, as it doesn't even leave decals. And that's how the map maker is just trying to like cover their own kind of a mistake with the level geometry. I don't know. You could make this make sense if it was like a realistic structure. You could make it make sense, but not right now. It's just like kind of weird. Makes no sense. Okay, enough with shitting on the level geometry. Let's get to map layout. Terraced entrances. There are 5 terraced contact points. Let's count from here, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This means that you have to have all your 5 counter terrorists locked into a position of contact. You have to have 2 CTs in middle, 1 CT in B, 2A. In other DE maps, and I think this is how the game of Counter-Strike, defuse game mode, plays the best. Excuse me. You have 4 points of interest, 4 locations that you can like kind of jiggle your players around. Nuke is another example of like outside having two positions, and then A bomb side having like 2 positions, and ramp having 1 position. But the positions that the CTs can take are really powerful, like above A bomb side in rafters. Like, think of that. There, the dynamic of terrorist entrances are then off balanced with CT positions being very CT sided. Here you're not off-putting the 5 contact points with anything except. Actually, yeah, you're not off-putting it with anything. The OG layout used to have a sightline over here where this wall wasn't cut in this way. You would be able to see from here within the timings that the CTs were allowed. You would be able to see down there and count as like how many T's were crossing over, you know? It didn't feel good in this version because the ground was so wonky, and it was like set up like in a way like this, that countering it as a CT, you would be peaking pretty much from the highest point that the T can peak is like over there, and the lowest point that they can peak is like over there. So it didn't feel good, and that's I think you might have removed that from just like getting scared of that like feeling bad, but it felt bad because it wasn't implemented correctly, right? Yeah, but what this dynamic does, it does allow for utility to play in a way that it creates dynamic in the middle. So let's say that the terrorists want to smoke themselves off, like so, for information purposes, right? Now this means that CTs can push closer, and terrorists risk some mid control over here, right? Now the CTs can push up close without having to give out any information from themselves. You know, they can push up close here and then flank after the smoke dissipates, right? Now T's have to counter that with pushing up to short, and those sorts of dynamics will create understandable situations in the map, and players can learn to play against these. Another like level, like a show of depth of concepts and dynamics, is that like players would then adapt to throw like util like this. Let's say that this smoke, it's gonna land too far. Like let's say that this smoke lands over here. That wasn't actually that bad. Let's say that the smoke lands over here, and this would be like a default smoke from the T side that would land in time for them to cross and then to push mid. This would mean that the T's are now behind a curtain of smoke that they could utilize to wide swing middle and gamble the positioning over. You know? These sorts of things add depth to the map. And now there's another, like this smoke forces counter-terrorists to push up close to it or molly behind it. Now it's creating an interesting dynamic where CTs have to like play around terrorist utility, right? That's competitive. That's immersive. That's depth in dynamics, right? Right now you cannot do that. You can smoke this, but what for? Just to take mid more nicely? You're not doing this for out of necessity or out of strategical advantage. You're doing it out of just wanting to get like a little bit further. I guess it is strategical advantage, but it's like piling onto already like existing terrorist advantages, and it's gonna feel like kind of shit as a CT, like having to waste a molly just because a terrorist threw a smoke like this, and now you are still like in the disadvantage as a CT. I have a strong opinion over maps having to be like a little bit more. Not every map has to be more CT-sided than T-sided, but the T-sidedness has to be justified with fun CT-side gameplay. And I think here the CT-side gameplay is like frustrating to the point that you might not even like play the map, right? Lastly, B-side layout. Right, B-side, let's mirror it to like DE cache in its layout, right? It has that like same sort of like smoke this and get the checkers, right? My problem with this area is that once you get to checkers, you're not covered enough to peek or like clear things one at a time. Like you're met with like this close angle there, back there. Now this shit is in the way, so that there exist like awkward headshot angles over that. The original layout, if you would just have widened this wall, make it more secure for the T's to push out of, make a little bit like one way to get out of here, and then make this thing wider and taller so that you can hide behind it, so that you can push from main next to this cover. I mean, you can do it right now, but it feels very bad because it's so like such a tight little spot. Yeah, and like make this thing that you can push out of the main, and like one by one start swinging things, and then you would have kept this back area. You know, on top of all those dynamics, you could have kept this back area in the map. Right now, you just decided to block it off, keep this little back awkward water. You know, the area looked like it pissed itself. It doesn't want to be here. Yeah. Squeaky doors are fine. B main's fine. I think the A setup, like how everything is set up, I think it's fine. Yeah, but the general layout, I think it's like you're still making like weird decisions and not really understanding your own map's dynamics. which I fear is going to be the downfall of this map if these things don't get looked at and really like studied. Yep. I think that's the feedback. Anyway, I tried to make it as less rambly. And I hope it wasn't rambly at all. You guys take care. Happy mapping. Stay safe.